My brother and I had been on the road for about 6 weeks, and the farther we went, the more challenging things had become. We dealt with a multitude of car repairs and had gotten lost several times. To top it all off, now we'd ended up stranded with our friends Rosie and Jane, stuck at the bottom of a really steep and rocky hill. As we waited for help to arrive, I thought back to a conversation I'd had months earlier with Jules Ingram, one of the organizers of this rally we were on. He'd warned me that this whole journey was sure to be difficult and even scary at times, but he told me to relax and embrace it.
The roads are genuinely dangerous. The other drivers are often dangerous. You're somewhere where you don't know where you are. That's part of the fun. A lot of the dangers are self-imposed, so you can mitigate those risks, definitely. But, you're driving 10,000 miles. A lot of our customers tend to be in high spirits, and when people are in high spirits, people often overestimate their ability to do things. But where's the fun without a bit of risk, I guess? You can climb Kilimanjaro and look at the amount of statistics of things going wrong there. You can get run over by a bus on the way to work. There are risks in everything.
I'm Scott Gurian. I'm a longtime public radio and print reporter, and I've created this podcast called Far From Home to document the unexpected adventures and chance encounters I have with interesting people around the world. To start off, I'm telling the story of a massive road trip my brother and I took with our friends, raising money for charity. We drove nearly 11,000 miles.
11,000?
That's right, a quarter of the way around the Earth, from London to Mongolia, through 18 countries, 8 time zones, 5 mountain ranges, and a few deserts, in a ridiculously tiny car.
It's like the Beverly Hillbillies.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's the adventure, isn't it? It's just the thing of pushing yourself to the absolute limit, because I think it's going to take us out of our comfort zone, but in a really good way.
If you're just joining me, I suggest you first go back and listen to all the previous episodes in order to get up to speed and for all of this to make a bit more sense. From language barriers to car trouble, getting horribly lost to paying bribes to shady traffic cops, it's been quite an amazing experience, and over the coming episodes, I'll be bringing all of you along with me for the ride. Jules couldn't have been more right when he spoke about rally participants overestimating their ability to do things, because that was exactly what we had done. To recap from last time, my brother and I were driving across Mongolia, doing our best to navigate the dirt tracks that made up the country's highway system when we got stuck trying to cross a river. We eventually managed to get out, but later in the day when we saw another river up ahead, we decided to veer off the main path onto a different route that seemed to go parallel. No problem, we figured. This way will be easier, because we'll be able to avoid the river and we'll just rejoin the regular path a few miles down the road. Well, if you followed our adventures over the last couple of episodes, you know by now that that turned out to be a big mistake. After getting stuck in another place with no one around to ask for help, we ended up sending a text by satellite to the American Embassy in Mongolia's capital, and they dispatched a tow truck to pull us out of our predicament. Now, I can't stress enough how remote we were. The rescue team spent hours searching, but even with our GPS coordinates, they couldn't manage to find us. So then the embassy dispatched a second team. The sun set behind the mountains and the temperature began to drop. As the hours continued to pass, we sat in our cars in the dark, huddled under our sleeping bags to stay warm. We had just dozed off when suddenly around 11 p.m., I was awoken by some high beams coming over the hill.
Oh, there's a light behind us. There they are. There they are.
Wait, really?
Yes. Look up on the hill.
Drew jolted from his stupor and sat up straight.
Flashlights.
I radioed to Rosie and Jane.
Hey, they're behind you.
We got out of our car and watched a giant orange vehicle approach us.
There's a truck coming down with red lights blaring.
It looked more like an oversized cargo van than the sort of tow truck we'd been expecting, and we were skeptical at first that it would be able to make it down the rocky path. But then I noticed it had a double set of tires in the back and was way more capable than it seemed. It drove past Rosie and Jane and stopped just behind us, on a little island between the two small streams where we'd gotten stranded. 3 guys got out. They wore navy blue uniforms with patches bearing the insignia of the Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency. They looked like a cross between police and the military.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming.
The driver walked up to me. His name, Almaspek, was embroidered over his left breast pocket.
I'm rescue.
Yes.
I'm here to rescue you, he said, doing his best to communicate in broken English.
Yes.
Call me, help.
Yes.
Yes, we
from
called
the
embassy to get tow. To pull.
Because the car is stuck, it won't go up the hill. We were trying to drive to Kovd, and we went the wrong way, wrong road.
He shook his head in disbelief at our stupidity.
I know, we didn't know.
We tried.
No signs on the roads. Sorry.
We tried explaining our situation, but were quickly stymied by the language barrier.
So, we cannot go here. We need to go here. Understand? They...
It's two cars, their car and our car.
Yeah, they need...
So...
Drew let out a sigh. Do you speak Russian? Almaspek asked.
Do you speak Russian?
No. We have a translation thing on our phone. On my phone. Here.
I typed out a message.
Both cars need to be towed to the main road.
He looked at it and discussed it with his colleagues.
Deliberating, trying to figure out what to do.
Finally, he gave us the thumbs up.
That's okay?
Okay.
And he had something he wanted to tell us.
You want to type? Give him the dictionary so he could type.
I switched my phone to a Russian keyboard and handed it over. A moment later, he gave it back.
He said, "We wait to see you can go." I don't quite know what he's saying.
Just when we needed it most, Google Translate was failing us.
We wait to see you can go. I don't know what that means.
Go
That way?
back way. Hop the way.
Yes.
Machine, rescue machine. Car go to Mosna on the...
I don't quite understand. I have no clue what's going on. It's so frustrating not speaking the language.
Drew jumped in.
So, what do we do now?
Almaspek motioned that they would pull us out and we would soon be on our way. He seemed to think that it would be easy, but he didn't have an appreciation for just how badly we were stuck. Drew and I had our doubts.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're gonna do. I suppose they know what they're doing. I hope they know what they're doing. It's quite chilly now. Oh, I'm shivering.
They spent a few minutes helping us, pushing and pulling our car to try to get it unstuck, but without really making much progress. Then, without any warning, they got back in their truck and drove off, continuing in the direction we were heading.
Wait, what? They're driving off. I don't know.
It took me a moment to realize what was happening.
Maybe they're going to check out the road first? That's got to be what they're doing. They're not just leaving us.
Remember, we'd received conflicting information about the path ahead of us. The first few people we'd asked seemed to say it was an alternate route that would take us where we were trying to go, to the city of Kovd. But then a few other folks were pretty adamant that the road was closed and we'd have to turn back the way we came. It occurred to me that only local people would know anything about these paths because they didn't appear on any maps, and since our rescue team had come from another city called Olgi, which was quite far away, it was probably as much of a mystery to them as it was to us. Sure enough, my theory was proven correct when after about 15 minutes they returned. They'd scouted out the path, and the good news was that it seemed to be drivable, so we could continue forward rather than having to turn around. All of us got back to work, trying again to get our car out of the stream.
Push or pull? Push.
We spent an hour or so trying fruitlessly to make it up the hill before they realized what we'd been trying to tell them all along, that our car had very little power for navigating this sort of rough terrain, and that a handful of guys pushing simply wouldn't cut it. Finally, they gave in and attached a tow rope to a hook on the front of their vehicle.
Okay, he's just backing up in his truck and pulling our car up the hill. Wow. Damn, it's a powerful truck. My gosh.
We'd been stuck in this spot all afternoon and evening, but suddenly, within just a few minutes, we'd gotten out, past the rocks that were holding us back, and up to the top of the hill. Then the guys drove back to the bottom and pulled Rosie and Jane's car up to meet us. Before we knew it, we were on the other side of this area Rosie had referred to as a canyon, and we were following the taillights of the rescue team's truck on this incredibly rocky path.
It's pitch black, and we're basically just driving down this hillside. I'm so glad they're leading us because we would never know how to go here. This is ridiculous.
No, that would be like leaving us to die.
I mean, even in the daylight, this would be impossible, but especially now in the dark.
As I've described in the past, many of the roads in Mongolia were little more than tracks through the dirt. But here off the main path, it was even harder than normal to see where to go. So we were concerned when the guys leading us stopped at a certain point, seemingly in the middle of nowhere, and proposed parting ways.
It's okay?
Rosie spoke up on the walkie-talkie.
Please make sure they stay with us and get us out of this.
Yes.
So how do we go to Kavd? Can you take us all the way?
We cannot go alone. We cannot go alone.
Afraid we get lost.
We don't know where we are.
Hold on.
I opened Google Translate on my phone again and typed up our request so Almasbek understood. He looked at it and shook his head.
No, Olgi.
It was nearly 1 a.m., so he had to start heading back the other way to Olgi, he said. We pleaded with him.
Please,
I am
please.
And then he gave us another reason.
Benzene.
Benzene, by which he meant gas. Yes, that's right. The Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency had spent so many hours driving around looking for us that they were running low on fuel. So now it was our turn to rescue them.
We have extra benzene if you need.
Yes, you need?
We unstrapped one of our jerry cans from our roof and poured 10 liters of gas into their truck's tank, which made them happy.
What does that say when the rescue team is out of gas? Yeah, right.
We still couldn't get them to agree to escort us all the way to Kavd, though. Almasbek managed to communicate that it was about 60 miles away, which could take several hours on these roads, so he tried to convince us that it wouldn't be that hard to figure out on our own.
They're trying to draw maps in the dirt on our back windshield. This is like hieroglyphics. We can't be left here, we'll never find it.
But after going back and forth for a bit, we finally reached a compromise.
You can take us to the main road?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We continued on, descending more from the mountain and driving across what seemed like a swampy lake bed. At one point, we came upon a yurt with a TV antenna, the first sign of civilization we'd seen in many hours. We saw lots of glowing eyes in the darkness and realized it was a giant herd of hundreds of goats blocking our path. So the guys knocked on the door of the yurt and woke up the people to ask them to move their animals out of the way. They got scared when our car lights shone on them, and they seemed to scatter in every direction. We kept going and eventually merged onto a more well-defined path.
This looks like more of a proper road.
This does look like more of a proper road, yeah.
After following them a few more miles, we watched them slow down and pull off to the side next to some sort of building.
So they just stopped and turned up the lights and they're getting out. Let's see what's going on here.
It appeared that this was where they'd leave us. Jane walked over.
We're not staying here tonight, but
Yes.
we're going nowhere.
Yes, I agree.
Almasbek had us sign our names on some sort of official-looking form, and he gave us his phone number to call if we had any more problems. We handed him a marker so the guys could sign their names on our car, and we gave them some bottles of water and a small bag of peanuts for their long drive home. Then I tried passing him a $100 bill as a token of our gratitude.
Here.
No,
we have to. No, really, please.
He shook his head and flatly refused to take any money.
Really?
No.
Can we get something?
Do we pay for the help for the service?
No.
Really?
Nothing? No bill, no nothing?
Benzene.
We gave him gas. We gave him free gas.
He laughed uncomfortably and seemed to say the gas was enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very kind.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And with that, they got back in their truck and drove away.
An ordeal.
And they went out their way
Oh,
to bring us
totally.
here.
They have to go back 120 kilometers now at 2 a.m.
That was about 75 miles, so they'd likely be driving all through the night. To us, it seemed like a lot, but the thought occurred to me that perhaps if you worked for the Mongolian National Emergency Management Agency, this was just another day.
Let's get the car where it's warm. Here's your phone.
We'll have a debrief tomorrow.
Let's go to bed. Come on.
Drew and I climbed under our sleeping bags, thoroughly exhausted.
So it's now just after 2 a.m. We're in much better shape than we were a few hours ago. So we will crash here for the night in our cars and get up early in the morning when it's light out and continue on our way, I guess. Long day. Long day.
I wish I could say we got a good night's sleep, but our day still wasn't over, believe it or not. We dozed off for about 45 minutes before waking up to lights from a giant orange truck pulling up alongside us. At first, we thought it was the same guys who'd returned for some reason, but then we remembered that the group that rescued us was actually the second team the embassy had dispatched after the first team couldn't find us. These were the first guys, and they were from Kavd, and after spending countless hours scouring the Mongolian countryside for our sorry asses, they were thrilled because they'd finally found us and were all too eager to help. The thing was, there was no cell service in the area, so they hadn't yet spoken to the other team to learn about our ordeal, that we'd already been rescued and were no longer in need of any real assistance. We tried explaining this to them, but with the language barrier, it was way too complicated for them to understand. It was the middle of the night now, and we were all super tired, so we'd been perfectly fine with staying put until the morning, but now these guys insisted that we follow them the rest of the way to Kavd so we wouldn't get lost. After discussing it amongst ourselves, we agreed that we couldn't turn down a personal escort, so we hit the road yet again. We were following this other team for about half an hour when we experienced a bit more bad luck. Drew describes what happened next.
Driving along, and sort of felt a drag on the left side of the car. Wasn't really sure what it was.
Oh yeah, the back one. Totally flat.
Took off the tire, it was shredded on the inside, but worse than that. Look at this.
What?
It seems as though a piece of the axle cracked.
Yep.
It's completely cracked.
Wow, that's bad.
Actually, it wasn't the axle itself, but the metal piece where the wheel was attached to the axle. I don't know too much about cars, but I think it might be called the wishbone. Whatever it was, after traversing all these bumpy roads over the past few weeks, it had finally given out, making the wheel on the left side of the car bow outwards and rub against the wheel well, causing a complete tire blowout. The rescue crew, which was supposed to be keeping an eye on us as we trailed behind them, wasn't doing a very good job since they had driven way ahead, so at this point we could barely see their taillights on the horizon. But eventually they realized something must be up, so they turned around and came back to help. As we all examined the situation with our flashlights, though, it quickly became clear that this would be no simple repair, and certainly not something we could fix ourselves without the proper tools. So, with the back of our vehicle still raised up on a jack, the guys said goodbye and left us once again to sleep in our car, promising that they would dispatch a tow truck to come after sunrise.
Well, this has been a long day.
Yeah, it sure has. This never ends.
It's like 4:45 almost.
I can't believe everything that's happened today. This is ridiculous. Don't laugh too hard, the jack might fall.
Well, hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. We can hope.
We can hope. We can really hope.
So it's the following morning now, and we've just woken up on the side of the road to the sound of a tow truck pulling up next to our car, and the guys have come out and they're inspecting our vehicle.
To be clear, it was actually only about 3.5 hours since we'd gone to sleep, but that little bit of rest somehow managed to make a difference. Now, in the daylight, we could see we were in the middle of a clearing with giant, flat fields of weeds and grass stretching in all directions, and mountains off in the distance. The guys told us to inflate one of our spare tires and put it on to replace the shredded one. We didn't see the point, since our car couldn't exactly make it very far in its current state, but we did as they said. Meanwhile, I watched them hop back in their truck and move to a ditch a few hundred feet down the gravel road. As I was trying to figure out what was going on, they motioned for Drew to drive over.
Okay.
I trusted they knew what they were doing, but it still made me nervous, especially as I watched the new tire, which was tilted at a 45-degree angle, rubbing against the car.
Oh man. Oh my gosh, it does not look good.
Jane came running over.
That is going to go. You can't drive on that.
That's what I'm worried about, yeah. I mean, they're telling him to go. I don't know what options we have.
I just think the whole of your back axle is going to collapse.
That's what I'm afraid. Is the whole thing going to fall?
The entire situation seemed pretty precarious, and the farther my brother drove, the worse it seemed to get. But the tow truck driver didn't seem too concerned.
He's saying keep going. Okay, just take it slow. I just don't want to do more damage than there already is, you know?
As we got closer, I realized that this was pretty different from the tow trucks we had back home.
This is crazy. The truck's flatbed apparently can't go back. So the only way to get the car on the flatbed was to drive the truck to a place where the side of the road was a lot lower than the road itself.
In other words, they found a place where the back of the truck could be more or less level with the road, and then they used tires and rocks to build a little ramp.
You know what the next question is? How do they get it off?
They're going to need to find another place where the side of the road is lower than the road, I guess. You know, it's crude, but it worked.
Watching our car, which she nicknamed Big Red, get secured to the back of the flatbed, Jane noted that it had been a while since we'd had any mechanical difficulties, so she was just starting to get her hopes up.
It was funny actually when we were in the car yesterday, and I was just about to say to Rosie, we're in Mongolia and Big Red is going really well. And it was just about to come out of my mouth, and I said to her, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I said, but when we get there, remind me to tell you.
I didn't want to tempt fate, she explained, but it turned out it didn't matter, since fate was already playing its hand. After a bumpy 2-hour ride in the cab of the tow truck, we arrived in Kovd. Our driver turned off the main road and brought us to a little shack in an industrial-looking neighborhood with lots of car repair shops. With all the time we'd spent stranded in the wilderness, it felt great to finally arrive back in a city.
One of the crazier 24 hours I think I've ever had in my life. I don't know about all of you.
No,
but really, that was
totally.
That was maybe the second worst 24 hours I've ever had.
To our untrained eyes, our damage looked pretty bad. But this was a country where people were used to driving on really poor roads, so the mechanic barely seemed to flinch. He straightened out our suspension, and then, with the car still sitting on the back of the truck, welded the part back together.
So how's it looking?
I have no idea. It still looks like a rusty axle to me, but they just spent the last 45 minutes welding, and we have nothing to do but trust that they're pros.
There's a postscript to this story. A few days after this whole fiasco, we had a chance to meet the folks from the embassy who we'd been texting when we were stranded. They said we were actually the first Americans in a situation like this that Mongolia's National Emergency Management Agency had ever helped. A few months after we returned home, they emailed us a photo of the U.S. ambassador presenting a certificate of appreciation to the head of NEMA to thank them for their efforts. You could see that picture, along with photos of our nighttime rescue, at farfromhomepodcast.org. Coming up next time, we assumed the Pamir Highway would be the roughest terrain we'd encounter, but that was no match for the last leg of our journey.
Mongolia certainly is trying to kill us. Or at least kill our spirit.
And after 18 countries and 11,000 miles, we finally reached the finish line.
Here it is! There's no one here. This is really lame.
Thanks to Katie McGee and Jessica Williams for editorial assistance, and to the Public Radio Exchange for podcast hosting and technical support. Remember, you could visit farfromhomepodcast.org to sign up for my newsletter with bonus content whenever I release a new episode. And you could follow me on social media by searching for Far From Home Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Remember also that if you're looking for a small way to support this show, the first thing you can do, of course, is to spread the word and tell your friends. But aside from that, you should download the Radio Public app on your iPhone or Android device. Not only is it a better and more user-friendly way to listen to podcasts, but they give show producers like me a tiny bonus for each of their listeners who uses the app, and every little bit counts. Until next time, thanks for listening.
I am ready to go home, but I think that's more because it's been such a long time.
And you've been away from home even
I was
longer.
away for over 3 weeks before we actually even started
So
this
it's
trip.
been how long now? It's been several months.
Yeah, I think it's probably about week 11 or something like that.
Since you left Australia.
Yeah.
Have you been away that long
No.
before?
No,
So
never.
how are you feeling about that? Are you a little homesick? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you don't think about being homesick,
Yeah.
but stuff's been happening to friends whilst I've been away, and I feel bad that I'm not there to support them because the text doesn't really do it. And I know everybody's been following us and being very supportive, but it's a long time. It's a quarter of a year. You put it into that kind of context.
Exactly.
So, yeah, feeling a bit emotional.
Hang in there, Rosie. We're almost there.